Commander Zektar of the Hegemony Fleet stared at the holographic display showing the small blue planet. Earth, they called it. The third planet in an unremarkable system that had somehow managed to avoid galactic attention for thousands of cycles. That was about to change. Intelligence reports confirm the species is barely spacefaring. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Vasok, reported with obvious disdain. They've only just managed to establish primitive colonies on their moon and the fourth planet. No faster-than-light technology, no energy shields, no plasma weaponry. Their largest vessels are roughly the size of our shuttlecraft. Zektar's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. The Seklathi had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years, their crimson ships bringing order to countless worlds. These humans would be no different from the hundreds of species that had knelt before hegemony might. "How many ships do they possess?" Zektar asked, though he already knew the answer would be pathetically small. "Approximately 40 vessels capable of interplanetary travel, Commander. Most are cargo haulers or scientific vessels. Perhaps 5 could be considered military ships, though they're armed with primitive kinetic weapons and nuclear warheads." Vasok's voice dripped with contempt. A single hegemony dreadnought could eliminate their entire fleet. The bridge of the World Breaker hummed with activity as junior officers prepared for what they assumed would be the shortest conquest in galactic history. The massive vessel, stretching nearly 10 kilometers from bow to stern, was the flagship of Battle Group Crimson. Its escort fleet of 67 warships had pacified entire star systems. Today, they would barely need to power their weapons. "Commander," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." "Already?" Zektar was mildly surprised. Most primitive species didn't detect the hegemony fleet until they were already in orbit. "Put it through." The main display shifted to show a human female in what appeared to be a simple blue uniform. Her skin was pale, her hair a strange yellow color that Zektar had never seen in nature. Most surprisingly, she seemed calm. Almost every other species had transmitted frantic surrender offers or desperate pleas for mercy by now. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said in clear galactic standard, though with an odd accent. "You have entered human space without authorization. Please state your intentions." Several officers on the bridge made choking sounds that served as their species' equivalent of laughter. The audacity was almost admirable. "I am Commander Zektar of the Hegemony Third Fleet," he replied, allowing his voice to carry the weight of authority that had cowed 1,000 worlds. "You will surrender your planet immediately and prepare for integration into the hegemony. Resist, and your species will be eliminated." The human admiral's expression didn't change. She simply nodded as if he had told her the weather. "I see. And if we decline your generous offer?" "Then you will learn why the galaxy fears hegemony steel," Zektar snarled, his patience already wearing thin. "Admiral Chen to all Earth vessels," the human said, apparently speaking to someone off-screen. "Condition red. Execute Protocol 7. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in confused silence. "Protocol 7? Lieutenant Vasok wondered aloud. What could they possibly hope to accomplish? Before Zektar could respond, his sensor officer called out in alarm. "Commander, new contacts appearing throughout the system. Multiple gravity distortions detected." "Impossible!" Zektar snapped. "They don't have FTL technology." The tactical display updated, and what Zektar saw made his blood run cold. Ships were materializing out of empty space, but not the crude chemical rockets intelligence had reported. These vessels were sleek, angular, and massive. The smallest was twice the size of a hegemony cruiser. "How many?" Zektar demanded, though his voice had lost its earlier confidence. "Counting continues, sir. Current count is 400 and rising. No, wait, 600. 800. The sensor officer's voice cracked. Commander, they're everywhere. Behind us, flanking us, above us. We're surrounded. Zektar stared at the display in disbelief. The primitive humans somehow possessed a fleet that dwarfed his own battle group. This is impossible! Our intelligence was perfect! How did they hide such a force? A new voice cut through the bridge's chaos. Admiral Chen had reopened communications, but now her image appeared on screens throughout the hegemony fleet. Commander Zektar, she said with the same unnerving calm, it seems there's been a misunderstanding. You assumed we were confined to our little solar system, scratching around with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. That was partly true. What your intelligence failed to discover is that we've been spacefaring for much longer than you think. The tactical display now showed over 1,000 human vessels, all of them larger and more advanced than anything in Zektar's fleet. You see, we learned long ago that in a galaxy full of predators, the smart prey pretends to be weak, Admiral Chen continued. We've been watching your hegemony for centuries, learning your tactics, studying your technology. We allowed you to see only what we wanted you to see. Impossible, Zektar shouted. No species could hide such technological advancement. Our sensors would have detected it. Admiral Chen smiled, and for the first time, Zektar realized how terrifying a human smile could be. Commander, we're not just any species. We're humans. We've spent our entire history fighting wars against ourselves, developing weapons, perfecting the art of deception. By the time we reached the stars, we had 10,000 years of warfare burned into our DNA. The display shifted to show detailed scans of the human vessels. Zektar felt his heart sink as he read the energy signatures. Quantum field generators, matter-antimatter reactors, weapon systems that operated on principles the hegemony had only theorized about. Our primitive fleet that you detected? Admiral Chen's voice took on an almost mocking tone. Museum pieces. We keep them around to remind us where we came from. The real Earth Defense Force has been waiting in fold space for decades, hoping someone would be stupid enough to threaten our homeworld. Lieutenant Vasok leaned close to Zektar's command throne. Sir, should we attack? We still outnumber them. Zektar looked at his tactical officer, who was frantically updating threat assessments. The numbers told a grim story. Each human vessel carried enough firepower to destroy multiple hegemony ships. A direct confrontation would be suicide. Admiral Chen, Zektar said, his voice carefully controlled, perhaps we should discuss terms. The hegemony is always willing to negotiate with equals. The human admiral's laugh was worse than her smile. Oh, Commander, we're far from equals. You came to conquer us. You threatened to eliminate our species. Did you really think we'd just shake hands and pretend it never happened? Warning alarms began blaring throughout the hegemony fleet as human vessels powered up weapon systems that registered energy outputs beyond the Seklathi scale. You have exactly 10 minutes to leave our solar system, Admiral Chen said, her voice now cold as the void between stars. If you're still here when the clock runs out, you'll discover why the galaxy should fear human steel instead. The transmission ended, leaving Commander Zektar staring at a tactical situation that had transformed from an easy conquest to a potential massacre in the span of minutes. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders, their earlier confidence replaced by barely controlled panic. Sir, Lieutenant Vasok whispered, what are your orders? Zektar looked at the countdown timer that had appeared on his display. 9 minutes and 37 seconds. The largest fleet in hegemony history, reduced to running from a species they had thought was barely evolved. Prepare the fleet for immediate withdrawal, he ordered, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. But as he gave the order to retreat, one thought echoed in his mind. The humans had been watching them for centuries, learning, planning. What else were they hiding? And what would the emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of Commander Zektar's humiliating retreat from the Sol system? Representatives from 47 species sat in stunned silence as the Seklothi commander delivered his report. The great amphitheater, which had witnessed the submission of countless worlds over millennia, had never heard such a tale of reversal. "You're telling us," Counselor Thren Alt of the Crystalline Consortium said, her voice echoing through translucent vocal chambers, that a single backwater species drove off the entire Hegemony Third Fleet. Zektar's mandibles clicked nervously. "The humans. They are not what our intelligence suggested. Their true fleet numbers in the thousands. Their technology surpasses our own in ways we do not yet understand." High Chancellor Morgan of the Void Walkers leaned forward, his ancient form casting shadows that seemed to move independently. "Impossible. We have monitored that system for centuries. The humans barely achieved chemical spaceflight 50 of their years ago." "That's what they wanted us to believe," Zektar replied, still struggling to comprehend what he had witnessed. "They have been watching us, learning our methods, our weaknesses. While we saw primitive rockets and nuclear weapons, they were building a fleet in hidden dimensions." The council chamber erupted in agitated sounds from dozens of different species. The idea that a supposedly primitive race could deceive the entire galactic community was unthinkable. "Even if what you say is true," interrupted Warlord Cax of the Hive Collective, his insectoid features twisted in skepticism, "one species cannot threaten galactic order we have ruled for 10,000 years. Admiral Chen's voice suddenly filled the chamber, transmitted on all frequencies simultaneously. "Actually, we can." Security systems throughout the council chambers screamed warnings as every screen, every communication device, every piece of technology displayed the same image. The human admiral sat calmly in what appeared to be a command center, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "How did you penetrate our systems?" High Chancellor Morgan demanded, his shadows writhing in agitation. "We've been inside your networks for decades," Admiral Chen replied matter-of-factly. "Your security is impressive against the technologies you know about. Unfortunately for you, we developed quantum encryption and neural network infiltration while you were still using basic encryption protocols. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. If the humans had been monitoring their communications for decades, they knew everything. Battle plans, diplomatic secrets, technological developments. "What do you want?" Counselor Thren Alt asked, her crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. "Nothing complicated," Admiral Chen said with that same unnerving human smile. "We want to be left alone. No more invasion fleets, no more demands for submission, no more threats to eliminate our species. In return, we won't share the recordings of this council planning to cleanse 17 worlds last year, or the details of how the hegemony ships their slave labor through supposedly neutral space." Uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. The humans knew far too much. "You think you can threaten the entire galactic community?" Warlord Caxus hissed, his rage overcoming his caution. "We don't need to threaten anyone," Admiral Chen replied calmly. "Let me demonstrate something." The display shifted to show a star map of the galaxy. Hundreds of red dots appeared, scattered throughout known space. "Those red markers represent human observation posts," Admiral Chen explained. "We've been establishing them for the past 2 centuries. Each one is equipped with weapons that make our defense fleet look like children's toys. We call them the Silent Watchers." Commander Zektar felt his blood freeze. 2 centuries? But your species only achieved spaceflight? 50 years ago, officially, Admiral Chen finished. In reality, we've been traveling between stars for much longer. We just made sure you only saw the primitive versions. Did you really think a species that mastered fire, agriculture, and nuclear weapons in the span of a few thousand years would take centuries to figure out faster than light travel? The tactical implications began sinking in. If the humans had been secretly spacefaring for 2 centuries, their true technological level was completely unknown. Each silent watcher can destroy a planet, Admiral Chen continued conversationally. Not by bombing it or melting its surface. We learned to manipulate stellar physics themselves. We can make stars go nova, collapse into black holes, or simply stop burning. From the safety of another dimension, of course. High Chancellor Morgan's shadows had gone completely still. You're claiming you can destroy star systems? I'm not claiming anything, Admiral Chen said. Computer, activate Silent Watcher Station 77 Alpha. Limited demonstration only. The council chamber's displays switched to show a dead system on the galaxy's rim. No planets, no asteroids, just a brown dwarf star barely larger than a gas giant. As they watched, the star began to brighten. That system used to have 5 planets, Admiral Chen explained calmly. The blight consumed them 3,000 years ago. The star has been dying ever since. Watch. The brown dwarf suddenly flared to brilliant white, transforming in seconds from a near-dead ember to a main sequence star that blazed with nuclear fire. We can make dead stars live again, Admiral Chen said. Imagine what we can do to living ones. The silence in the council chamber was absolute. The power to manipulate stellar physics was beyond anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Even the ancient Void Walkers, with their mastery over space itself, could not casually reignite dead stars. The demonstration is complete, Admiral Chen announced. Silent Watcher 77 Alpha has been deactivated. The star will return to its previous state within one of your galactic standard days. Counselor Threnalt found her voice first. What do you want from us? Nothing you can't easily provide, Admiral Chen replied. Recognition of human space as sovereign territory. No interference with our trade routes or colonies. No more attempts at conquest or subjugation. In return, we'll continue to maintain our current policy of non-interference in galactic affairs. And if we refuse? Warlord Caxus demanded, though his earlier aggression had been replaced by wary caution. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. Then you'll learn why we spent so long watching and learning. We know the location of every hegemony fleet base, every consortium mining operation, every hive world. We know your trade routes, your supply lines, your cultural centers. We've been planning for this conversation for 2 centuries. You're talking about war against the entire galaxy, High Chancellor Morgan said slowly. No, Admiral Chen corrected. We're talking about defense. We never wanted to rule anyone or conquer anything. We just wanted to be left alone to develop in peace. Unfortunately, the galaxy seemed determined to prevent that. So we prepared for the inevitable. She leaned forward slightly, and for the first time, the council members saw something predatory in her calm demeanor. Humans have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We've been preparing for a very long time. The question now is whether you want peace, or if you'd prefer to test just how well we've prepared. Commander Zektar, who had remained silent through most of the exchange, finally spoke. Admiral Chen, surely we can reach some accommodation. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us. I agree completely, Commander, Admiral Chen replied, her tone becoming almost friendly. We have no desire for conquest or expansion beyond our current territories. We're quite happy to remain in our small corner of the galaxy, trading with whoever wants to trade and defending ourselves against whoever doesn't. And the Silent Watchers? High Chancellor Morgan asked. We'll remain exactly where they are, Admiral Chen said firmly. Insurance policies, you might say. As long as no one threatens humanity, they'll just continue their quiet observations. But if any species decides that humanity needs to be conquered, eliminated, or enslaved... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, A species had forced the Council to recognize their sovereignty, not through conquest or diplomacy, but through a demonstration of power so overwhelming that resistance was unthinkable. As the session ended and representatives began filing out, Commander Zektar remained in his seat, staring at the now empty display where Admiral Chen had appeared. The galaxy's BAL 6 months after the Council's recognition of human sovereignty, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new normal. Trade continued, diplomatic relations resumed, and most species tried to pretend that the entire balance of power hadn't shifted overnight. But everyone was watching humanity, waiting to see what they would do with their newfound position. Ambassador Marcus Rodriguez stood in the observation lounge of the human diplomatic vessel Harmony, watching the Krelith homeworld grow larger through the transparent aluminum viewport. The planet's twin purple suns cast strange shadows across its crystalline cities, and somewhere down there, a humanitarian crisis was unfolding that would test everything the galaxy thought it knew about human nature. Ambassador, his aide, Commander Lisa Park, approached with a datapad. "We're receiving updates from the planetary surface. The plague has spread to 6 more city-states. Their medical infrastructure is completely overwhelmed." Rodriguez nodded grimly. The Krelith had been one of the galaxy's most isolationist species, rarely participating in council affairs and maintaining strict quarantine protocols for their homeworld. They had also been among the most vocal opponents of recognizing human sovereignty, claiming that primitive species had no place in galactic politics. Now their genetic pride had become their downfall. A viral mutation, something their homogeneous immune systems couldn't handle, was sweeping through their population with devastating effect. Their desperate call for help had reached the Galactic Council 3 days ago. "What's the Council's response?" Rodriguez asked. "The same as always," Commander Park replied with barely concealed disgust. "Committee formation, impact studies, resource allocation debates. They estimate it will take 6 weeks to approve an aid package, assuming they can reach consensus." 6 weeks, Rodriguez repeated. "How long before total population collapse?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. Rodriguez turned from the viewport to face his aide. "Contact Admiral Chen. Tell her we're implementing Protocol Omega." Commander Park's eyes widened. Protocol Omega was humanity's ultimate demonstration of their true capabilities, reserved for situations that demanded the galaxy understand what humans really were beneath their peaceful exterior. "Sir, are you certain? The political ramifications—" "Commander," Rodriguez interrupted, "we spent centuries watching the galaxy because we wanted to understand it before we revealed ourselves. What we learned was that most galactic species think in terms of power, conquest, and dominance. They assume everyone operates the same way." He gestured toward the dying world below. "They're about to learn what makes humans different." Within hours, human vessels began arriving in the Krelith system, but these weren't warships or even the massive diplomatic cruisers the galaxy had grown accustomed to seeing. These were something entirely new. Kilometer-long vessels that pulsed with strange energy signatures and deployed technologies that defied conventional understanding. The lead vessel opened communications with the Krelith planetary government, and Ambassador Rodriguez found himself speaking to Supreme Counselor Ventharak, whose crystalline features showed the ravages of worry and sleepless nights. "Ambassador Rodriguez," the Krelith leader said, his translator struggling with the exhaustion in his voice. We did not expect human assistance. Our species has not always been supportive of your emergence." "Supreme Counselor," Rodriguez replied calmly, "humanitarian aid isn't conditional on political agreement. We're here because your people are dying and we can help. That's all the justification we need. But surely you require something in return. Concessions, territorial rights, technological exchange." Rodriguez smiled the same unsettling human smile that had become famous throughout the galaxy. "Counselor, you're thinking like the rest of the galaxy. We're not here to exploit your crisis. We're here to end it. The massive human vessels descended through the Krelith atmosphere, their hulls shimmering with protective fields that adapted to the planet's unique energy environment. As they touched down in the major population centers, they began deploying equipment that made the Krelith medical technology look primitive by comparison. "What are those structures?" Supreme Counselor Ventharak asked as he watched the human deployment from his command center. "Quantum medical bays," Rodriguez explained. "They don't just treat symptoms or even diseases. They rewrite genetic code at the molecular level, rebuilding immune systems from the ground up. Each bay can process 10,000 patients per day." "Impossible," the Krelith leader breathed. "Genetic manipulation on that scale. The energy requirements alone would drain our planet's power grid." "Which is why we brought our own power sources," Rodriguez said casually. "Those bright spots you see around each medical bay? Miniature fusion plants, each one producing more energy than your largest power station." Within 6 hours, the human medical bays were operational. Krelith citizens, many of them carrying loved ones who were near death, began arriving in massive waves. What they witnessed defied everything they thought they knew about medical science. Patients entered the quantum medical bays dying, their crystalline body structure clouded with viral corruption. They emerged hours later not just healed, but with immune systems enhanced beyond their species' baseline. The plague that had threatened to destroy their civilization was being eliminated one patient at a time. Dr. Sarah Chen, Admiral Chen's sister and the head of the human medical mission, worked alongside her team in the main medical bay. Unlike the military vessels that had awed the galaxy with their destructive potential, these ships represented the other side of human advancement. The ability to heal, to preserve, to enhance life itself. "Doctor," one of her assistants called out, "we're getting some unusual readings from the genetic modifications. The Krelith immune systems are adapting faster than our models predicted." Dr. Chen nodded, studying the data streams flowing across her displays. "Their crystalline physiology is more responsive to quantum field manipulation than we expected. Adjust the enhancement protocols and see if we can optimize the process further." Outside the medical bay, Supreme Counselor Ventharak watched his people emerge transformed, not just healthy, but stronger than they had ever been. The implications were staggering. "Ambassador," he said through the communication link, "what you're doing, it's not just healing, is it? You're improving us." Rodriguez nodded. "The human medical philosophy is simple, Counselor. If we can make someone better than they were before, why wouldn't we? Your people will emerge from this crisis with immune systems capable of handling viral threats that don't even exist yet." "But why?" Ventharak asked, confusion evident in his tone. "Your species could have demanded anything in return for this aid. Territory, resources, submission to human authority. Instead, you're making us stronger." "Because that's what humans do," Rodriguez replied. "We don't conquer or dominate. We elevate. We've spent our entire history fighting our own worst impulses, learning that our strength comes not from destroying others, but from lifting them up." News of the human intervention spread throughout the galaxy faster than any hyperspace transmission. The species that had terrified the Galactic Council with demonstrations of stellar manipulation was now saving an entire civilization without asking for anything in return. In the hegemony capital, Commander Zektar studied the reports with growing amazement. "They could have let the Krelith die," he said to Lieutenant Vasok. "It would have eliminated one of their strongest critics." "Instead, they made them stronger," Vasok replied, still struggling to understand the human mindset. "The Krelith will be grateful for generations." "It's not about gratitude," Zektar realized. "They're showing the galaxy what they really are. Not conquerors or destroyers, but something else entirely." On the Void Walker homeworld, High Chancellor Morgan contemplated the new data in his shadowy halls. His species had ruled through fear and overwhelming power for millennia. The humans were demonstrating a form of strength that made their previous displays of military might seem insignificant by comparison. They were winning through compassion. Within 2 weeks, the Kreolith plague was not just contained, but eliminated. The enhanced immune systems the humans had provided would protect the crystalline species for countless generations. But the real transformation was happening throughout the galaxy. Species that had viewed humanity with fear or suspicion began to see them differently. The beings who could destroy stars were the same ones who would cross the galaxy to save strangers who had opposed them. The warriors who had driven off the entire hegemony fleet were healers who enhanced life rather than destroying it. "Ambassador," Supreme Counselor Ventharak said as the human vessels prepared to depart, "how can we repay this debt?" Rodriguez smiled one final time. "There is no debt, Counselor. There never was. Helping others isn't a transaction for humanity. It's just who we are." As the human ships lifted away from the Kreolith homeworld, they left behind a transformed civilization and a galaxy that was finally beginning to understand what it meant when humans said they wanted to be left in peace. They weren't hiding because they were weak. They were protecting the galaxy from having to choose between submission and annihilation, because when humans finally revealed their true nature, it wasn't as conquerors or destroyers. It was as guardians. The galaxy had thought humans were weak because they sought peace. Now they understood the truth. Humanity was so strong that they could afford to be merciful, and that mercy, more than any weapon or fleet, was what would reshape the balance of power among the stars. In the end, the galaxy learned to fear not human strength, but human kindness. Because kindness backed by the power to reshape reality itself was the most terrifying and wonderful force the universe had ever seen. Ants of power had just shifted in ways that would take years to fully understand. The humans had been watching, learning, and preparing for centuries. The question that haunted him was simple. What else had they been doing while the galaxy thought they were just primitive barbarians playing with chemical rockets? He had a feeling the galaxy was about to find out. LD happened when the rest of the galaxy learned that humanity was not the weak prey they appeared to be. The countdown continued its relentless march towards zero, and with each passing second, Commander Zektar realized that everything the galaxy thought it knew about the balance of power was about to change forever.